They sat me next to the trash cans, literally, at my own brother's wedding. The smell was faint, masked behind the floral arrangements and the faint scent of catered hors d'oeuvres, but unmistakable. I stood there for a second too long, blinking at the chair draped in white satin, planted just a few feet from the twin gray bins marked compost and waste. The staff, young, overworked, shuffled past with bags and trays, not even glancing at me as they dumped leftovers into the open mouths of the cans. I double-checked the place card. Madeline Connor. No mistake. The sun glared against the cream tents, catching the crystal glasses and blinding me with reflected elegance. White petals floated in the breeze like snow, dancing around perfect centerpieces of orchids and roses. Everyone else sat under shaded canopies, sipping champagne, laughing into pearls. The head table gleamed in gold, where Ethan and Clara, the radiant couple, were flanked by family and the important ones. My parents were up there too, beaming, like this wedding was theirs, like this achievement belonged to them. But me? I got the trash. I forced my lips into a polite curl and sat down, smoothing the creases in my navy dress, even though it no longer felt appropriate. The chair rocked unevenly. Behind me, a gust of wind swept in a sour note from the buffet scraps. I adjusted my posture, pretending I didn't notice, pretending it didn't matter. It mattered. I wasn't even supposed to be late. The original invitation said the reception began at 4. Then I got a vague message yesterday. No call, no explanation, saying it had been moved to 3:30. By the time I finished a meeting and rushed out of the city, the ceremony was over. No one greeted me at the entrance. No one came to check on me. Only the server with sunburned arms and a headset led me here, offering a soft, "Sorry, this was the last seat available." She didn't meet my eyes. She didn't need to. I heard the voices behind me before I turned. She looks tired, probably overworked again. Money doesn't buy peace. She missed the ceremony? That's her brother. Unbelievable. I heard she pays for most of this, but you wouldn't know it. I didn't need to look to know who they were. Distant cousins, whispering behind wine glasses. The same ones who'd asked me for job referrals or introductions in the past. The same ones who'd tell me how proud the family was of me, then turn around and scoff when I declined to lend more money. "You didn't tell me," Ethan muttered, stepping close for a second, his boutonniere brushing against my shoulder. "It's lucky there's a seat at all." His eyes didn't meet mine. He looked past me, already distracted. As if my presence was a technicality he'd barely remembered. "You didn't tell me either," I said, voice even. He frowned, shrugged, and vanished back toward the VIP cluster. I sipped the water at my place, lukewarm and flat. No one refilled it. Around me, guests laughed and toasted. Clara's sorority sisters posed for photos in pastel dresses. My parents clinked glasses with her family. My mother's laugh rang out like a school bell. Sharp, performative, unmistakably satisfied. She didn't look once in my direction. When Ethan was 15 and broke his wrist skateboarding, I left college finals to bring him home. When Clara wanted a pre-wedding photo shoot in Greece, I covered half the costs quietly. When the deposit for this venue came due, I transferred the money through my company so it wouldn't raise questions. All of it. Quiet support. No recognition expected. But I suppose a seat by the compost bins was more than enough thanks. I stood up slowly, gathering my clutch. No one noticed. Not even the photographer, who zoomed in on a group of bridesmaids giggling near the champagne fountain. The silence was deafening. A different kind of noise. The noise of being unacknowledged, unseen. I turned my back to the happy chaos and walked toward the service path behind the tents, heels sinking slightly into the damp grass. My dress snagged briefly on a branch, but I didn't stop. There was no anger in me yet, only cold clarity. A sense that this specific moment was not a mistake. It was deliberate, and I'd let it happen too many times before. My phone vibrated. A new notification. Final transfer pending, $42,500. I stared at it for a long breath, my thumb hovering. They didn't tell me about the time change. They didn't save me a real seat. They gave me garbage. And I funded every fork and flower in this circus. My nails tapped against the glass once, twice. Then I typed, slowly and deliberately. She texts the wedding planner. Cancel the final transfer. I've changed my mind. Ethan always got away with everything. I just never realized how far he'd go. There was a time when I believed Ethan simply had bad luck. When a deal failed, or a professor accused him of cheating, or he crashed Dad's car during a quick errand, we all rallied behind him, and we always assumed he meant well. We said things like, he's still young, or he's just trying to figure things out. And somehow, the ones picking up the pieces were never him. Like the time he used my name to bid on a vendor contract, without telling me. I was 20, fresh out of college, working on building my portfolio. He was 19, high on charm, and absolutely zero accountability. He convinced a local business to take on a big client using my credentials. The deal fell through spectacularly. The contract was riddled with inflated claims and missed delivery dates. Ethan blamed it on me, said I hadn't supervised properly, and I, stupidly, agreed. I apologized. I fixed the mess. I paid the penalty out of my savings. No one punished him. Dad shrugged and said, "It's just business. He'll learn." Mom sighed and offered Ethan tea. Now, a decade later, the patterns remained. My phone rang as I drove back from the wedding venue, silence heavy around me. It was Mom. "Hello?" I answered flatly, already knowing this wasn't a check-in. "I just wanted to talk about what happened," she began, her voice honeyed with a practiced calm that grated against my skull. "You left early. People noticed." "I didn't leave early," I said. "I wasn't told the right time." A pause. Then, "You always make things bigger than they are, Maddie." "I was seated next to trash cans," I said, not raising my voice. "You knew. You saw. There were last-minute changes. The planner was overwhelmed. It's not Ethan's fault." "It never was. I'm sure you understand that it was just a chair," she continued. "This isn't worth ruining the entire evening." Ethan was upset. "You embarrassed him." I laughed, quiet and bitter. "I embarrassed him? You're older. You should know your place." There it was, the line that hung over every childhood dinner, every holiday photo where I stood slightly out of frame, every compliment retracted with a, "But Ethan's really the star, isn't he?" "I was the one who paid for half of that evening," I said. Her voice hardened. "And don't remind everyone of that, Maddie. Money isn't everything. But apparently it's enough to earn a seat by the trash. Maddie, I won't sponsor anything else unless it's in writing. Ever again." The silence that followed was loud. She didn't argue. She didn't apologize. Just a clipped, "That's your decision," before she hung up. I pulled over and sat with my hands on the steering wheel, watching the rain begin to speckle the windshield. There was no fury in me. No rage. Only an ache that felt carved from years of small insults, small exclusions. The kind that slowly erode even the strongest sense of self. At home, I dropped my clutch on the hallway table and kicked off my heels. The house was clean, quiet, exactly how I liked it. I'd designed this space to be mine. Pale wood floors, cool tones, no clutter. A life of order. Something I'd built brick by brick with no help from the people who now demanded pieces of it. My laptop was still open on the desk from earlier that morning. I clicked open the email Ethan had sent 2 weeks ago. The subject line, "Quick update on Clara's vision." No greeting. Just bullet points, vague numbers, a note about final vendor decisions. Then one line at the bottom, "Just sign. I'll take care of the rest." I hadn't responded. I hadn't signed. Something in me paused even then, though I didn't know why. It was the same something that had paused every time he'd asked me to co-sign a rental, float a loan, vouch for a pitch. The email had an attachment, a sponsorship agreement drafted under my name with blank check clauses buried in the middle. No vendor cap, no final number, no liability clause. It was a trap, a beautiful, familiar trap. I hovered over the forward button. Then I typed in the name of my lawyer. She starts forwarding the emails to her lawyer. Never trust a contract written by family, especially one with invisible clauses. The receptionist at Hollis and Crane offered Maddie water twice before she even managed to sit down. Her throat was dry, but she declined. It wasn't thirst that clawed at her, it was dread. The kind that tightens your ribs before a verdict. The office was cold, steel and glass with a view that split downtown in half. Maddie had always liked that about Hollis. Everything felt sharp, controlled. Unlike her family, who built their lives on sentiment and sweet talk, Hollis dealt in facts. She didn't have to wait long. Hollis appeared in the doorway of his office, waving her in. His salt and pepper hair was slicked back, suit immaculate. He didn't smile, but there was a flicker of recognition in his eyes. "Maddie," he said, "let's take a look." Inside, he gestured for her to sit across from his glass desk, already displaying the contract Ethan had sent. She didn't speak as he scanned. His brow twitched once, then again. "Interesting," he muttered. "That's not a word I want to hear from my attorney," she said, half joking. He gave her a dry smile. "Well, this isn't standard, and it certainly isn't ethical." He tapped on a highlighted clause mid-page. "This here, on the surface, it looks like a typical indemnification section. But notice how it references financial discretion by the grantee in executing forward-facing event costs. That's vague and dangerous." Maddie leaned forward. "What does that mean?" "It means Ethan, or anyone operating on his behalf, can take out a loan or extend credit using your sponsorship as collateral, under your name." She blinked. "That's not legal." "It's barely legal." He buried it under phrasing most people wouldn't spot, but it gives him broad discretion, especially since you didn't sign with conditional stipulations. Maddie felt the blood drain from her face. He said he just needed help with the vendor payments. Hollis looked at her. "He has access to use your name with financial institutions." A memory surfaced unbidden. Derek, her ex, warning her during a late-night fight years ago. "Stop fixing your brother's messes. One day, he's going to cost you more than you can afford." Back then, she thought he was exaggerating. Now she saw he was simply early. Hollis clicked to another page. "This part's also clever. A clause about defamation. But ironically, it protects you. If Ethan's use of the funds harms your public reputation, you have cause to revoke the agreement in full." "Even if it's already been partially executed?" Maddie asked. He nodded. "Especially then. There's precedent. We can file a cease and desist, revoke financial instruments, freeze withdrawals from the fund. Immediately." She stared at the screen. The contract no longer felt like a document. It felt like a loaded weapon, pointed both ways. "Do it," she said, voice steady. "Let's freeze everything, effective immediately." Hollis didn't flinch. He turned to his assistant and dictated instructions in rapid, precise language. The firm moved like a machine. Maddie could see emails firing off in real time, subject lines with urgent and breach notification. "While we do that," Hollis said, swiveling back to her, "you should know. Ethan's assistant emailed us an invoice yesterday. They're planning to lock in a private loan backed by your event fund. The request was marked time-sensitive." Maddie laughed. Short, cold. Of course it was. "You'll need to brace yourself. This move won't be quiet." "I'm not afraid of noise," she said. "I'm tired of being polite while they siphon everything I've built." The door opened briefly. Hollis's associate handed him a printed notice. He scanned it and handed it to Maddie. "Here," he said. "This is the freeze notice. We'll deliver it within the hour." She took the paper, fingers brushing the crisp edges. Power didn't always feel grand. Sometimes it felt like holding a sheet of paper that said, "Enough." Then Hollis leaned back, folding his hands. You realize this could bankrupt your brother? One line. That's all it takes to bring everything crashing down. Maddie sat cross-legged in her home office, the blue glow of her laptop screen reflecting off her glasses as midnight crept past. Around her were scattered papers, screenshots, and a half-empty mug of cold tea. The curtains were drawn, the silence broken only by the occasional ping of incoming emails, and the pounding of her own heart. She hadn't changed out of her black dress from the wedding. There was something fitting about still wearing the uniform of betrayal. Her eyes skimmed the folder marked wedding assets. Raw. Hundreds of files. Photos, short videos, drone shots. Even a time-lapse of the guests arriving. She clicked through them one by one, scanning faces, listening to voices, rewinding and zooming in as though piecing together a crime scene. And in a way, she was. Then she found it. The clip was shaky. Someone had recorded it on a phone, laughing behind the camera. Ethan stood by the dessert table, surrounded by 2 groomsmen and a cousin or two, a glass of champagne in his hand. He raised it in mock toast. My sister? He said, loud enough for the mic to pick up. She only has money because she married rich. Honestly, if it weren't for Derek's fat trust fund, she'd still be coupon clipping. Someone laughed. Ethan smirked, then added, Don't get me wrong, I love Maddie, but she's not exactly self-made. The air drained from the room. Maddie sat frozen, heart crawling into her throat. Her fingers trembled as she hit replay. Once, twice. Then she hit record on her screen capture software, saving the exact segment with timestamp and metadata. She exported it, labeled it Trigger Evidence Final.mp4. The bile in her throat didn't come from surprise. It came from how normal it all sounded. How easy the words rolled off his tongue. Like he'd been waiting for an audience to say it. Her phone buzzed. A name flashed across. Derek. She hesitated, then picked up. Didn't expect you to call this late, she said, keeping her voice flat. I saw the headlines, Derek replied. Your name's being thrown around. Ethan's team is already trying to spin the freeze as a misunderstanding. Of course they are. Need help? He asked, tone neutral. I found something, Maddie said. A video clip. From the wedding, there was a pause. What kind of clip? She told him, word for word. No reaction from the other end, just a slow exhale. That's defamation, Maddie. On a public platform with witnesses, especially since it's false. You never use my money. I know. Then yes, it's enough. That's your trigger clause. Send it to Hollis. She hesitated. Why are you helping? A pause. Then Derek said, Because I warned you years ago, and I hated being right. She didn't respond, just ended the call gently. She drafted the email to Hollis, attached the file, and typed only one sentence. Here's your trigger. Her cursor hovered over the send button, heart hammering in her chest. Then she clicked. Within minutes, Hollis replied, Legal grounds confirmed. Proceeding with notice. Maddie leaned back in her chair, staring at the message. It was happening. Not just a symbolic freeze, this was real action. She was finally untying the last rope they'd wrapped around her neck. She opened the drawer beside her desk, pulled out a labeled folder. Phase 2, Investment Withdrawal. Inside were documents, copies of transfer schedules, company asset maps, and her notes from months ago. She'd kept them all, just in case. And now, it was time. You don't need to set the whole house on fire. Just weaken the beam. The venue sparkled under chandeliers that cost more than some people's yearly salaries. Ethan stood on the raised stage, flanked by towering LED screens and bouquets of imported lilies. A thick red carpet led from the entrance to the podium, lined with crisp-suited men and women murmuring into champagne glasses. Maddie stood at the back. She hadn't dressed to be seen tonight. Simple black slacks, hair pinned up, lips pale. She stood alone, not in protest, but in precision. Across the room, Derek appeared by her side almost like a shadow. He didn't greet her. He didn't have to. I take it you're ready? he asked softly. She nodded, eyes never leaving Ethan. Let him finish his speech first. It'll make the contrast sharper. Ethan's voice rang through the room, projected and polished. We are deeply grateful to every donor who made this vision possible. The construction of the Eastgate Convention Center will not only elevate our city's standing, but create over 500 jobs and bring in international partnerships. There was applause. He flashed his signature smile, the one that made people overlook the fine print. Behind him, a slideshow played images of blueprints, renderings, and past events. Visual proof of a legacy in the making. Maddie's phone vibrated at exactly 8:16 p.m. She glanced at the screen. Automated notice sent. The timing was surgical. Across the room, the buzz began. Barely a whisper at first. A man in a navy suit frowned at his phone. A woman next to him leaned in, showed her screen. A ripple passed through the donors, subtle but unmissable. People tilting heads, refreshing inboxes, tightening lips. Then a voice. What clause is she invoking? Another. Is this serious? She's freezing the entire investment? Ethan looked confused at first. Then his assistant approached, leaned in with tight urgency. Whatever she whispered, it drained the blood from his face. He stepped away from the mic mid-sentence. Ladies and gentlemen, if I may have a moment, we're experiencing a minor technical confusion, he said, forced smile glued on. Please enjoy the open bar, and I'll personally clarify everything shortly. It was too late. The room had already shifted, postures tensed, conversations sharpened, and beneath the glossy surface, suspicion bloomed. No one liked instability, least of all financial donors. Ethan shot a look across the room and spotted Maddie. For the first time, there was no smirk, no false charm, just the beginning of fear. He started toward her, but before he could make it halfway, she turned and walked out. Derek followed. Outside, the air was cool. Crickets hummed in the distance. Maddie stood at the edge of the parking lot, watching the golden light flicker behind the glass walls of the event hall. Derek adjusted his blazer. He'll recover tonight. Spin a story. Blame an intern. Call in favors. I know, she replied. But you just made him bleed. That's the first drop. She nodded slowly, then leaned in, voice barely audible over the breeze. That was just the first crack. Watch the ceiling. Ethan's spine isn't moral, it's cash flow. The office was quiet. Too quiet for a Tuesday morning. Ethan stood by the window, staring down at the valet stand, where no black sedans lined up, no donors stepped out with overfed confidence. Just a lone pigeon picking at a crumpled receipt. His phone buzzed again. Another text from a board member. I'll be stepping away until this clears up. Hope you understand. Hope, Ethan thought, was something people reserved for cancer. This wasn't hope. This was hemorrhaging. He turned away from the window and stormed across the open concept workspace. His assistant, Kara, looked up from behind her screen, eyes wide. Still no response from First Haven Bank? He demanded. They said they'll call back by 9, but... Right then, the office phone rang. He lunged for it. Mr. Langston, came a smooth voice on the other end. We're calling regarding the capital guarantee tied to Eastgate Convention Center's primary account. A legal freeze has been issued against the associated sponsor assets. We regret to inform you. You can't freeze it. That account has our vendor deposits. You understand what that means? I'm just delivering the notice, sir. You'll want to speak with your legal counsel. Good morning. Click. The line went dead. He stared at the receiver in disbelief. God? He flung it aside. It hit the couch and bounced uselessly to the floor. Kara hovered, unsure. Should I call Maddie again? No. He grabbed his personal cell. I'll do it. Somewhere in another part of the city, Maddie watched the morning news tick across the screen in her living room. One of the business networks ran a silent chyron. Langston Development faces legal uncertainty over convention project. She didn't smile. Instead, she sipped her coffee and waited. At 9:03 a.m., her phone rang. Ethan's name flashed on the screen. She let it ring once, twice, then answered. Really, Maddie? After everything I've done to include you, this is how you repay me? His voice was trembling but sharp, like a rusted wire snapping. You couldn't just talk to me? You had to make it public? There was a pause. She heard him breathing, uneven, furious but unsure. I'm protecting my own assets. Her voice was flat, clinical, and then she hung up. Inside the event company's glassy walls, Ethan stood frozen, holding the phone like it had betrayed him. Kara said nothing. Moments later, the door swung open. One of the key investors, Daniel Trenholm, stepped in unannounced. We have a problem, he said, tossing a manila folder on Ethan's desk. There's no copy of the sponsorship agreement you promised us? Half of our risk team wants out unless we see proof within 48 hours. It was verbal, Ethan said, too quickly. Family trust. Trenholm narrowed his eyes. We don't do trust, Ethan. We do paper. When the investor walked out, Ethan turned and hurled his phone against the wall. It cracked but didn't break completely. And without a beat, he grabbed the landline again. Get me Gregory, now. I want to talk to my lawyer. When people are not right, they often choose to attack with emotions. The invitation had arrived in an envelope embossed with golden vines. The handwriting was unmistakably her mother's. Flourished, careful, almost desperate. Just a small gathering, it read. Family only. Let's talk. Maddie let it sit on her kitchen counter for 3 days. Derek had seen it, picked it up, and offered only one comment. A trap doesn't stop being a trap just because they smile when they set it. She hadn't planned to go, but on the day of the gathering, she found herself dressing in charcoal gray slacks and a crisp blouse. Something neutral, something armor-like. Are you sure? Derek asked as he waited by the door. She nodded once. The house hadn't changed. Same white columns, same rose bushes along the walk. Maddie parked around the corner and approached on foot. Derek followed a few paces behind, pretending to check his phone, a silent shadow in case things turned ugly. Inside, the family room was arranged like a stage, warm lighting, soft classical music. And perched on the love seat beneath a photo of Ethan's graduation sat their mother, smiling a smile stretched too thin. Madeline, she greeted, arms outstretched. You made it. Maddie gave a nod. I'm not staying long. Across the room, Ethan leaned against the fireplace, a glass of something amber in his hand, talking to Uncle Reggie and Aunt Lynn. Oh, Maddie's here, he said, all bright surprise. Good, we were just talking about her. Reggie looked uncomfortable. Lynn shifted her weight. Maddie always was the strong one, Ethan continued, stepping closer. Even when she dropped out of college that one semester, she bounced back. He said it lightly, like an anecdote, but the weight in his voice was precise, sharp. She didn't drop out, Derek muttered behind her. She deferred to pay for Ethan's tuition. Maddie didn't respond. Not yet. Ethan went on. She's just been under a lot of stress lately, that's all. We all make decisions that don't quite make sense when we're emotional. Right, Mom? Their mother chuckled awkwardly. Maddie has a good heart. Sometimes it gets a little tangled in feelings. There were nods, a few murmurs of agreement. Maddie stood still. Her heart didn't race. Her palms didn't sweat. She had learned, finally, how to be still. I'm not here for tea, she said. The room quieted. If I am emotional, she added, stepping forward, it is because I am still ashamed. Gasps, real ones this time. The kind people make when a chandelier trembles unexpectedly. Ethan frowned. Ashamed of what? She ignored him. She turned to her mother instead, opening her leather satchel and pulling out a neatly folded printout. It was an email. The ink was bold, the text unmistakable. She handed it over with steady fingers. This is from Ethan, she said. Subject line. Just sign. I'll take care of the rest." The room was silent. Her mother opened it with trembling hands, scanning the lines. Her lips parted. "You remember this, right?" Maddie asked, voice smooth. "It was sent just days before the contract went through. The one that placed my name on legal obligations without full disclosure." Ethan took a step forward. "That was private." "No," she cut him off. "That was manipulative." Derek watched from the side, arms crossed. No need to interfere. Maddie faced the room. "If anyone here still thinks this is about a chair at a wedding," she said, "you're not paying attention." She took a breath. "And if you think I'll keep playing by invisible family rules, rules where silence is expected in exchange for affection, you're mistaken." Her voice didn't crack. Not once. She turned to leave, and just before stepping out the front door, she turned back to her mother. "That's only one email. There's more." She handed her mother a printed copy of the email Ethan sent, with the words, "Please sign." No need to punch your enemy in the face to make him bleed. Just kick him in the heart. The coffee shop was the kind of place where secrets could be poured into cups and swallowed with frothy silence. Maddie sat by the corner window, her blazer crisp, her hair tied back in quiet defiance. Across from her, two men nursed espresso shots with the caution of investors who'd just gotten wind of smoke, but weren't sure where the fire was yet. Derek leaned casually against the wall by the entrance, pretending to scroll through his phone. He wasn't here as backup. He was here as reminder. The taller of the two men, Franklin, broke the silence first. "Ms. Harper, you asked for discretion. You've got it. What do you have to show us?" Maddie didn't answer with words. She pulled a slim folder from her bag, placed it gently on the table, and opened it. Inside were two contracts, identical in format, different in substance. "This," she said, pointing to the one on the left, "is the version Ethan emailed me, with a signature line at the bottom, pre-filled, dated, ready for my convenience." Then she pointed to the one on the right. "And this is the hard copy I actually signed at Hollis Law after being advised. Note the absence of Clause 14C. Franklin's brow creased. His partner, Ramesh, adjusted his glasses and leaned in. "You're saying he added terms after you signed?" Ramesh asked. "I'm saying," Maddie replied, "that what I approved is not what he submitted to the financial board, which means the foundation of the sponsorship is fraudulent." Franklin sat back. "That's not a small matter." "No," Maddie agreed. "It's not. Especially not when millions are involved in someone else's name. Mine is on the legal documents." They were silent for a beat. She continued, "I'm not asking you to cancel the project. Yet. I'm asking for accountability. And for you to see who you're dealing with." She tapped her phone, then turned it around. A short video played. The wedding. That golden-lit evening. Ethan, champagne glass in hand, laughing with a group of extended cousins. Then the words came, clear despite the background music. "My sister only has money because she married a rich guy. Not exactly the brains of the family, you know?" It was the kind of comment people pass off as jokes. But in a court of law, and under the terms of their sponsorship agreement, it was defamation. "Clause 9-D, Maddie said. Party B may not defame, insult, or publicly diminish Party A. Violations result in immediate termination of contract and potential financial penalties." Ramesh glanced at Franklin. The older man didn't speak, but his fingers drummed against his coffee cup. "We suspected," Ramesh finally said quietly. "But it was not so obvious." Maddie tucked her phone away. "Well, now it is." Franklin nodded slowly. "We'll need time to verify this, to re-examine all documents. And I want to see every financial trail that has Ethan's name and your authorization." "You'll find inconsistencies," she said. "But I won't say I told you so. I'll just say, better now than later." The men stood. So did Maddie. Franklin extended a hand. "Thank you for the meeting. We'll suspend disbursement until everything is clear." "That's fair," she replied. They began to turn away when Ramesh paused. Ms. Harper? Yes? If we need originals, full originals, how can we reach you? Maddie met his eyes, steady and unwavering. If you need more originals, I have a safe. The weak-minded think the plan is to attack, so the more they fight back, the more they expose their weaknesses. The article dropped at 9:15 a.m. sharp on a Tuesday morning. Prime time for corporate gossip, especially in the wedding and event planning circles. Maddie's inbox began to light up within minutes. The blog was niche but influential. The Inside Aisle. Known for juicy exposés and anonymous sources, it rarely printed anything without a whisper of truth behind it. Except today. The headline was tame enough. Inside the collapse of Langston events, miscommunication or sabotage. But buried halfway down was the quote. I think Maddie Harper means well, but she's arbitrary, impulsive. She doesn't understand how her actions can cut into people's careers. We had a good thing going, until her mood shifted. No source named, just a person familiar with the internal operations. Derek sent Maddie the link with one word, predictable. Hollis, on the other hand, wasn't so casual. She's not even named as the source, Maddie said on speakerphone while sipping her coffee. That's the game, Hollis replied. He thinks if he keeps it veiled enough, you won't sue for defamation. But the quote plants a seed, especially coming from someone who clearly gave them access. He's grasping, Derek added, stepping into Maddie's kitchen, trying to control the narrative. And then came the cherry on top. Later that afternoon, Ethan hosted what he smugly called a staff town hall at his event office. Except he also invited a couple of hand-picked journalists. One of them was from City Features Weekly, another from Industry Edge. He stood on a makeshift podium in front of his employees, some of whom looked more confused than concerned. I never wanted this, he said, hands clasped like a misunderstood pastor. But when someone maliciously sabotages a project this significant, when they jeopardize dozens of jobs, I can't stay silent. That's why we're preparing to take legal action, to defend ourselves. The room was quiet. One brave junior planner raised her hand. You mean, you're suing your sister? Ethan cleared his throat. This isn't personal. It's about restoring truth. Hollis watched the clip online later and rolled her eyes. He's bluffing, and dangerously so. Time to call it, Maddie said calmly. That evening, she sat at her desk, staring at the beige manila folder marked Loan, Ethan L. Inside, everything. From the informal email Ethan sent requesting the money to the forged addendum he filed with a third-party lender using Maddie's name. She selected each file, zipped them into a clean archive, and opened a blank email window. To C. Klein at InsideStory.News. Subject, Langston Debt Trail Body. As discussed, every document is here. Use wisely. She hit send. Derek appeared in the doorway. You okay? I'm not angry, she said. Not even sad. I just want it all out there now. He didn't press further. She didn't need comfort. She needed truth. Later that night, her phone rang. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. Ms. Harper, a woman's voice said, low and precise. I'm Clarissa Klein, the senior reporter from Inside Story. I reviewed your files. I believe you're holding the blood vessels of the whole event market in your hand. Maddie didn't respond. Clarissa continued. Would you consider a private interview? Something exclusive. Before your brother finds a new narrative to spin. Maddie looked out the window at the city, blinking beneath her. She didn't say yes, but she didn't hang up either. Do you want a private interview? I believe you have the blood vessels of the whole market. You can delete a text message, but you can't delete a recorded speech. The city hummed beneath Maddie's windows. Cars like blood cells pulsing through veins of concrete, neon signs blinking like nervous ticks. It was nearly 1 a.m., the hour when ambition sleeps and consequences wake. Maddie sat cross-legged on the floor, her laptop open, an external hard drive blinking steadily beside it like a heartbeat. Derek paced behind her, barefoot, holding 2 mugs of tea, both untouched. I swear, Maddie muttered, dragging folders from one side of the screen to another. I saved it somewhere. I didn't know what it meant at the time, but I knew I'd need it. Derek stopped pacing. Saved what? She didn't answer immediately. Click, click, scroll, and then an audio file, labeled E_L_pre-wedding call.M4A. She double-clicked. It started with static. Then Ethan's voice, rushed, breathy, clearly calling from his car. Mads, hey, I just sent you the final doc for the venue. The resort needs confirmation, like, yesterday. Just sign. We'll handle the rest. Don't stress over the details, okay? Then came the moment. Or don't sign. I already have the copy I need. Derek froze. Maddie looked up. Her hands trembled. Not with fear, but with fury wrapped in ice. She sent the file to Hollis with no subject, no note, just the raw weight of truth. The reply came within minutes. Hollis, this is it. This is document fraud, clear as daylight. We're past civil court. He's playing in criminal territory now. Derek sat down beside her. What are you going to do with it? Maddie didn't speak. Instead, she opened 3 email drafts, each with a different address. Franklin and Ramesh, the main investors. Subject, new evidence. Audio confirmation body. Attached is an audio recording relevant to our sponsorship contract and legal standing. Clarissa Klein, journalist from Inside Story. Subject, for the next piece body. This is the quote he'll never be able to walk away from. Office of Citywide Event Standards and Compliance. Subject, urgent ethics concern. Langston Events. Body, attached is audio evidence regarding potential fraud in vendor registration. She attached the file to all 3, fingers poised over the trackpad. Derek watched. You sure? He asked. She nodded once, calm as still water. Click, 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 3 emails sent. The silence that followed was heavier than thunder. She leaned back against the couch, exhaling long and slow. That was the last one, she said. No more hidden corners. No more second chances. Derek finally handed her the tea. He won't survive this. No, Maddie replied. But it's not about him anymore. It's about the truth breathing again. Her phone buzzed again. Hollis, this time with just 1 line. I've contacted the city legal desk. This is moving fast now. Maddie took a long sip, then set the mug down and turned toward Derek. Do you think he will run away or come out? Not every trial requires a jury. Sometimes it just takes the right timing and enough witnesses. The ballroom at the Hilton shimmered under a canopy of crystal chandeliers and anticipation. The annual Event Innovators Conference was Ethan's crown jewel, his moment to unveil his new, family-inspired venue model. Banners lined the corridor. Collaboration begins with kin. Maddie stood by the back wall, arms folded, her badge turned backwards to avoid attention. Derek leaned against a nearby column, and Hollis, never one for theatrics, sat in the second row with a notepad. Casual but ready. Ethan took the stage, confident and polished in a blue suit that had probably been tailored yesterday. His voice was buttered charm, gliding effortlessly. Ladies and gentlemen, we're on the cusp of transformation, he began. Our next project, Langston Collaborative Spaces, is rooted in something deeper than business. It's rooted in family. In trust, he gestured toward a looping slideshow. Smiling faces, concept drawings, donor lists. A photo of him shaking hands with a councilman. That's why I want to share not just a product, but a philosophy, Ethan continued. Because in a world full of contracts and clauses, nothing matters more than truth, Maddie said. Her voice sliced through the hall. Microphones squealed slightly. Heads turned. She was already walking toward the stage. Ethan froze for half a beat before smiling. Maddie, I didn't know you were... Don't worry, she interrupted. I'm not here to take up much time. Just 3 minutes. There was murmuring. Someone whispered, "Isn't that his sister?" Another murmured, "Didn't she sponsor this?" Maddie turned to the audience and raised her badge. Former sponsor, former partner. Ethan laughed nervously. "Let's not make this personal." "This isn't personal," she said, turning toward the projector. "It's public." Derek handed her a remote from the floor. She clicked once. The screen changed. Slide 1. A scanned PDF of a contract clause, highlighted in red, with Maddie's name misused for collateral purposes. Slide 2. An audio waveform, then the clip played. "Or don't sign. I already have the copy I need." The room was dead silent. Slide 3. A close-up photo of the signature. Underneath it, Maddie's real signature. The mismatch was obvious. Ethan's face had gone pale. His lips moved, but no sound came out. Maddie turned to the audience, not him. "I was asked to invest. I did. I was told it was about family. It wasn't. I was told my signature was just a formality. It wasn't. This," she pointed to the screen, "is fraud." No raised voice, no accusation beyond what the evidence already made plain. She took a deep breath. "If this is a family inspiration," she said quietly, "then this family needs an ethics review." That's when the first hand rose. A man in a gray jacket stood. "My name's James Monroe, senior partner at Lonsway Capital. We were told this project had clear sponsorship and verified financials." He looked at Ethan. "Effective immediately, we're halting all support until a full independent audit is conducted." More whispers, more shifting in chairs. Another investor nodded. "Same here. We've been misled." Maddie didn't smile. She just stepped down and walked back toward the aisle. Derek met her halfway. Ethan remained on stage, mouth slightly open, blinking into a room that no longer felt like his. "We are stopping all support. Effective immediately." Ethan wasn't pushed off the cliff. He chose to stumble because he thought he could fly. 3 days had passed since the Hilton conference, and yet the buzz hadn't died down. It had merely migrated. From the press to the boardrooms, from the offices of donors to Reddit forums and Slack threads, Ethan Langston's name had turned into a live wire. Nobody wanted to touch it, but everyone watched to see if it sparked. Inside the downtown headquarters of Langston Collaborative Spaces, the atmosphere had shifted like a house where someone died suddenly. The receptionist's desk was empty. No music played. No idle chatter. And Ethan's name plaque on the door had been taken down, quietly by someone who didn't leave a note. He stood in the center of the open plan office, papers in hand. His custom suit wrinkled, tie gone, hair unkempt. He hadn't slept. He hadn't eaten much. The secretary, Jillian, had stopped replying to his texts. When he tried to call, it went straight to voicemail. He turned toward the conference room and saw it. A whiteboard once filled with diagrams, now wiped clean. Just one sentence remained, written in thick red marker. "Internal review in progress. No meeting scheduled." "Cowards," he muttered, storming back to his desk. He pulled out his phone and called the one person he believed would still take his side. "Mom?" His voice cracked. A pause. Then her voice, flat, distant. "Whatever you did to your sister, take care of it yourself." Click. No goodbye. He sank into his chair, knuckles white as they gripped the phone. Then came the knock. Not at the door, but digitally. A ping from his bank app. A red banner. Account frozen. Due to pending civil litigation. Contact your legal representative. He clicked the notification. It opened to an official filing. Case number, court seal, plaintiff, Madeline Langston. Another ping. An email from the company's finance director. Effective immediately, we are pausing all transactions pending legal audit. He felt it then. Not anger, not even fear, but hollowness. Like the floor was gone, but he hadn't hit bottom yet. He stood, stumbled a bit, grabbed the printed court documents from the edge of his desk. Court summons, he whispered. She actually filed it. Then he walked, past the empty desks, past the leftover coffee mugs and dried-out plants, to the main foyer. The lights were half-dimmed. No more intern with a clipboard. No more assistant to announce his name. Just silence. He stopped in the center, looking up at the company logo etched on glass. Langston Collaborative Spaces. The word collaborative now sounded cruel. He didn't notice the sound of the elevator doors opening behind him. Didn't notice the footsteps until they stopped. He turned slowly. It was Derek. No jacket. No words. Just a phone in his hand. They looked at each other. Derek lifted the phone. Click. The flash was brief, but enough. Ethan flinched. Derek didn't move, didn't smirk. Just looked at him, still and cold, as if documenting the final scene of a story that should have ended long ago. He stands in the middle of the empty office, holding a stack of court papers. When Derek walks in, when the destroyer is gone, we see who is silently standing in the middle of the ruins to clean up. Windmere Bay in December was cold but forgiving. The waves didn't rage. They just whispered, brushing up gently against the boardwalk as if unwilling to disturb the stillness that had settled in town. Maddie had never stayed here longer than a weekend before. Now, it was the only place where she could breathe. Shelter's Stories bookstore was tucked into the corner of a sleepy street, between a flower shop and a taxidermist that hadn't opened in years. It smelled like cedar and dust and dreams that had once been printed in hardback. Maddie adjusted the display table, aligning a new set of titles under a small chalk sign that read, Reclaiming Yourself, featured reads. Excuse me. A girl's voice said, soft but clear. Maddie turned. A teenager, maybe 16, wrapped in a wool coat 2 sizes too big, was looking up at her with wide, searching eyes. Do you have any books about self-made women? She asked. Maddie paused. For a moment, the weight of the past weeks pressed at the edge of her smile. Then she nodded. Follow me. She led the girl past the history section to a small corner shelf, barely noticeable unless you knew to look. These aren't just about success, Maddie said, tapping the spines one by one. They're about surviving the noise and remembering your own voice. The girl touched a book with trembling fingers. My mom says I should just learn to be quiet. Maddie crouched so they were eye level. Quiet is a choice, not a punishment. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. The bell above the door chimed. Mr. Wilson stepped in, holding something in his gloved hands. His gray coat matched the December fog outside. Well, if it isn't our resident fire starter, he smiled. Maddie raised an eyebrow. I swear I haven't caused any structural damage in at least a week. He chuckled and handed her the rolled paper. Thought you might want this. The schools were publishing it in the alumni yearbook. Maddie unrolled the page. Planting in Ashes, How My Family Taught Me to Be More Than Them. An essay she had written during her undergrad finals. Forgotten, buried beneath years of polite compliance. Mr. Wilson leaned in. The head of the department said it's the most requested reprint they've had. She held the paper for a long moment. Not for nostalgia, but for clarity. Later that afternoon, Derek walked in, hair tousled, scarf carelessly looped. He didn't say anything right away, just pulled a folded piece of paper from his coat and set it on the counter. Maddie unfolded it. Blueprints. A layout. A name at the top in bold serif font. Reclaim her. Underneath, handwritten notes, peer network. Resources hub. Monthly community chats. Hosted by real women. For real stories. She looked up. Derek didn't smile, didn't push. Still your name on it, he said simply. That night, she locked up the store, turned the lights low, and sat on the old rug in the back room, staring at the blueprint in her lap. The next morning, the flyers went up around town. Community chat. I'm not a puppet in my family anymore. She didn't know who would come, but that evening, the bookstore buzzed. People filled the aisles, sitting on cushions and stools and even the floor. They listened, nodded, took notes. Some cried. Some just looked relieved. She didn't preach. She just shared. Then, as the room quieted, the door opened again. A woman stepped in. Mid-30s, worn coat, tired eyes that had once dreamed further. She didn't take a seat. Just stood. "I used to want to be like you," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "But I was scared." A woman walks in, recognizing Maddie, says, "I used to want to be like you, but I was scared." Freedom is not an open gate. It's when you stop being afraid of the person who holds the key. The sea was quieter than usual that evening. Windmere Beach, in its late December stillness, carried none of the holiday noise, just the rustling whisper of the tide and the occasional gull tracing circles overhead. Maddie stood barefoot at the edge of the water, the sand cool against her skin, damp with a fading tide. Behind her, a group of women gathered in a loose circle. Some she knew by name now. Others were just eyes that had met hers during the weekly talks. Tonight wasn't another meeting. It was something simpler, something more sacred. They had come here not for solutions, but for silence. And Maddie had come not to lead, but to let go. She turned and walked slowly back to the small driftwood log they'd used as a seat. Derek was nearby, sitting farther back, half in shadow, coat zipped high and hands buried deep in his pockets. He didn't look at her. He didn't need to. Maddie took her place among the women and began, her voice low but steady. "I used to believe freedom was about leaving," she said. "Leaving the house, the people, the legacy, but it's not." Several heads tilted. "Freedom," she continued, "is when you stop shrinking in rooms just because someone else believes they own the air." No one applauded. No one needed to. A middle-aged woman beside her wiped her nose with the back of her hand. "I think I only had two choices. Shut up or go crazy." Maddie nodded, eyes never leaving the woman's face. "I thought so too. But now I'm rewriting the script." She let that hang in the air. It wasn't rehearsed. Nothing was. The sun began to kiss the waterline, burning orange tinged with lavender. The horizon was blurred, soft like a painting just before completion. One by one, the women began to rise. They walked to the edge of the tide and knelt in the cold sand, their fingers drawing names, sometimes theirs, sometimes names long buried. Some wrote in big block letters, others traced with fingertips barely skimming the surface. But each name held weight. Each letter an offering. Maddie watched. Angela May, Sarah Mother Me. She crouched slowly, the ocean brushing just close enough to dampen the hem of her jeans, and began to write. Maddie. A simple name. Not the successful businesswoman. Not the sister who paid. Not the sponsor. Just Maddie. For the first time in years, it felt enough. Behind her, someone stepped closer. A hand touched her shoulder. Warm, firm, familiar. Derek didn't say anything at first. His fingers just stayed there, anchoring her to this moment. Then, in a voice meant only for her, he whispered, "You saved more than one person today. One day you won't need them to know who you are. Just don't forget who you are." The air at the Windmere Book Fair was crisp and clear, filled with the faint scent of roasted coffee beans, ink, and salt from the nearby ocean. Rows of booths stretched along the promenade, each manned by hopeful authors, publishers, and curious readers. Maddie sat behind a modest folding table covered in soft gray linen, a neat stack of books in front of her. Letters I Never Sent. The cover was simple. Just her name. No title proclaiming business success. No subtitle advertising drama. Just Madeline Carter in calm serif. A few curious passers-by wandered past, flipping pages or asking polite questions. But Maddie wasn't here to sell. She was here to stand. A teenage girl with a backpack too big for her frame stepped forward, clutching a printed copy of a blog article. Her eyes were round with disbelief. "Excuse me," she said shyly. "Are you Are you the one who canceled $1 million project because you were ignored at the wedding? Maddie blinked, then smiled. Not out of pride, but something deeper. A quiet knowing. I'm the one who realized I was worth more than a table. The girl, Lily, her name tag read, let out a breath that sounded like relief. Your blog, Reclaimer, it changed everything for me. I printed out every post. I showed them to my aunt. She paused, swallowing emotion. She left a man who used to call her stupid every morning. Maddie reached across the table and took her hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. I didn't write it to change the world, just to stop pretending mine didn't need changing. They didn't say much else. Lily walked away with a signed copy, held like a shield across her chest. Then the noise around Maddie changed. Or maybe it was just the silence that followed. She looked up and saw him. Ethan. Thinner, paler. A man who had lost more than weight. He held a single copy of her book in his hand like it might burn him. He said nothing at first, just stood there. No arrogance, no smile. Just silence. Then, softly, as if the words had taken days to form, he said, "Congratulations." Maddie studied him. There were years between them now. Not just time, but consequences. Choices. And silence that finally meant something. "I'm not your sister anymore," she replied. "We're strangers now." Ethan nodded once, as if he'd expected it. He didn't argue. Didn't explain. He turned and disappeared into the crowd, swallowed by the same noise he used to dominate. Maddie didn't watch him go. Instead, she turned her eyes toward the horizon, where the sea shimmered under the pale afternoon light. The waves rolled in, steady, slow, unbothered by the passing of names or faces. She reached into her bag and pulled out a folded piece of cardstock, her own name tag for the fair. She smiled to herself, then whispered, not to anyone in particular, not for applause or witness. This time, I'm the one who booked a seat for myself, and it wasn't near the trash can. The moment Maddie stopped waiting for her family's recognition was the moment she reclaimed her name. In a world where loyalty is often confused with silence, she chose to speak, with evidence, with clarity, and without fear. Justice didn't come loud or fast, but it came firm, dragging deception into the light. Like the final chord of a long-forgotten melody, truth echoed long after the applause had faded. No wall of lies can stand forever against the tide of truth.